Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Channel Crime Story Diaries. Life can be unpredictable, filled with both joyous moments and heart-wrenching tragedies. The story of Lauren Heyke, a vibrant 29-year-old from Phoenix, Arizona, serves as a poignant reminder of how fragile our existence can be and how quickly everything can change. Lauren, a beautiful soul with captivating green eyes, had an unwavering faith in the goodness of others. Little did she know that her trust and openness would ultimately lead to her untimely demise. Lauren Heyke was born on November 20th, 1993, in Seattle, Washington, into a well-off family. Her father, Jeff, owned a plumbing manufacturing business, and her mother, Lana, worked in real estate. The girl was very close to her older brother, Ryan. Lauren received her secondary education at Central Kitsap High School in Silverdale, Washington. After graduation, she moved to Phoenix and enrolled at the Gary Manuel Aveda Institute, where she studied to become a cosmetologist and skincare specialist. Lauren always took great care of herself and had a good understanding of cosmetics, so her education helped her develop her natural inclinations. The girl began her career at the age of 18 and built a successful path. Initially, she worked as a customer support representative. From 2015, for 5 years, Lauren was a leading manager at the renowned cosmetics company Benefit. Then she worked as a cosmetologist at a beauty salon for 9 months. In October 2020, the girl got a job as a manager at the Center for Aesthetic Medicine. She also planned to follow in her mother's footsteps and try her hand in the real estate field. At the time of the tragedy, Lauren was working full-time as an instructor at a golf club. The girl was never afraid of difficulties, was responsible, and easily found common ground with people. She was actively developing in the beauty industry, sports, and real estate. Lauren carefully monitored her physical fitness. She regularly engaged in fitness and generally led a healthy, active lifestyle. The girl had many friends and a supportive family. Lauren loved to spend her free time productively. In addition to work, sports, and meeting with friends, she adored travel and hiking. It was precisely because of the presence of picturesque trails that she loved Phoenix so much. Lauren often walked alone, listening to music and enjoying nature, fresh air, silence, and tranquility. Her favorite route was a path in the northern part of the city, not far from her apartment, where there was almost never anyone around. Understandably, the girl's parents were very concerned about her solitary treks in deserted places, but Lauren herself was convinced that nothing bad could happen to her. Every morning she thanked fate for the day she lived and boldly set out for a walk. According to her family, Lauren had a kind of ritual. She would wake up, drink coffee, chat with loved ones and friends, and then go for a walk. And she did this every day because she believed that this way she would start the new day with positivity. Unfortunately, the girl did not realize that her trusting nature and carefree attitude could play a fatal role. On April 28, 2023, Lauren's morning began as usual. She drank coffee, talked with family and friends on the phone, and went for her usual walk in the northern district of Phoenix, not far from her own apartment. The route passed through a picturesque trail in a calm, quiet, sparsely populated area and took 15-30 minutes one way. The girl left the house at approximately 10:30 a.m. The last time surveillance cameras recorded her was at 10:52, when Lauren was calmly walking along the trail in the park. The girl was wearing a pink sports top, black leggings, and sneakers. She only had her phone and keys with her. No one saw her alive again. Lauren was supposed to show up for work at 11:30, but did not come and did not warn about her delay or absence. This was uncharacteristic for a very responsible girl. Colleagues started calling her, but to no avail. Lauren's phone was turned off. Worried friends began massively sending messages on social networks and calling each other, hoping that someone knew where Lauren was. But no one could say anything, because no one had seen the girl after she left the house in the morning. Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Lauren's alarmed parents, who also could not reach her, arrived at her apartment. They hoped that their daughter was simply feeling unwell and therefore did not go to work. However, Lauren was not at home either, although her things remained in place. The doors were locked. No signs of robbery or struggle were found. It seemed as if the girl had gone for a walk and simply had not returned. After that, the relatives immediately turned to the police with a missing person report. Law enforcement officers reacted instantly and began searches, but they did not yield quick results. The day of April 28th was sunny and warm, as usual in this area. Unfortunately, there were almost no people in the park where Lauren was walking. If someone had passed by at the moment of the attack, perhaps the tragedy could have been avoided. But this did not happen. Lauren was last seen alone on the way to the park, and then the girl disappeared and no longer answered calls. Throughout this day, the police and volunteers actively surveyed the surrounding area, the park, and looked for witnesses. They combed every corner, every bush, but to no avail. Loved ones hoped that perhaps the girl had simply wandered off somewhere, got delayed, or went to visit friends in another area of the city. Relatives constantly tried to call Lauren, wrote to her, but there were no signs of her whereabouts. With each hour, hopes faded and fear for the girl's life grew. Parents, brother, friends could not find a place for themselves. It seemed like some kind of terrible dream. The following morning, April 29th, around 11 o'clock, the worst happened. Lauren's body was found by a random passerby, a woman walking her dog. She immediately recognized the girl because she often walked this route. Next to the trail, in the bushes, a dog sensed a terrible find. The woman saw Lauren's bloody body and immediately called the police. Law enforcement officers instantly arrived at the scene. They saw a chilling picture. Lauren's lifeless body lay 3 meters from the trail in the thicket, covered with numerous stab wounds. The girl was lying face up, her arms outstretched, and her clothes torn. There was blood everywhere. Experts immediately got to work. The forensic medical examiner reported that death occurred on April 28th at about 11 a.m. from blood loss caused by deep knife wounds. In total, 15 stab wounds were found on the body, most likely inflicted with a pocket knife. The wound in the back area became fatal. The nature of the wounds indicated that the attack and murder lasted for some time, as the wounds were in different parts of the body, of unequal depth and shape. The injuries on the girl's hands indicated that she resisted. Deep cuts were on both sides of the hands when Lauren was apparently grabbing the sharp knife, trying to deflect it. The police realized that the girl fought to the last. However, the attacker turned out to be very aggressive and strong. The attack itself was unexpected for the victim. Scratches on the back, shoulders, torn clothing indicated that the suspect attacked from behind, knocked Lauren down, and began stabbing her with a knife. Then he turned her over and continued to strike. At the crime scene, a clear footprint from a size 42-43 sneaker remained, probably belonging to the attacker. An examination of the area revealed that during the struggle, Lauren tried to crawl away, escape, and hide from the blows in the bushes, but to no avail. Traces of blood stretched for several meters and broke off near the body. The girl fought for her last breath, called for help, but at that early hour in the deserted park, unfortunately, no one was around. Not far from the body, a few meters away, a barbed wire fence was found, which the girl apparently desperately tried to climb over. Pieces of torn clothing and traces of Lauren's blood remained on the wire. Experts suggested that it was probably due to the attempt to overcome this obstacle that there were so many scratches and abrasions on the girl's body. Also nearby, Lauren's things were found: a phone and house keys. They fell out of her pockets during the struggle. There was no wallet or other valuables on the girl, so the version of robbery was immediately discarded. Lauren's phone turned out to be broken. The last calls were made on the evening of April 27th. That is, no one had heard from her for more than a day. During further examination of the territory, forensic specialists discovered another important detail. A few meters from the crime scene, among the branches, lay a bloody pocket knife. Experts immediately suggested that this was the murder weapon. A thorough examination of the blade and handle revealed fingerprints and other DNA traces that belonged to an unknown man. Hair and epithelium of the killer were also seized at the crime scene. Lauren's body and all the found physical evidence were immediately sent for examination. Meanwhile, investigators tackled surveillance camera footage. It turned out that one of the cameras recorded the moment Lauren entered the park at 10:52. The girl was walking alone, listening to music in her headphones. Nothing suspicious was noticed. However, literally a minute later, the figure of a tall, thin man in dark clothes flashed across the recording. He quickly ran past the camera as if trying to hide his face. Nevertheless, the experts managed to discern that it was a young African-American man in a cap. At the same time, the height, build, skin color, and clothing elements coincided with the description of the person whose traces were found at the crime scene. Another camera installed at the exit from the park recorded how the same man literally flies out from around the corner, looking around at 10:59. Then he tries with all his might to climb over the fence, but gets caught on his clothes, and in the end, simply jumps over the fence, losing his cap. Further, the suspect disappears in an unknown direction. These records gave the investigation its first hope. Although the identity of the perpetrator could not be established immediately, now the police had an accurate description and distinguishing features of the person who needed to be found. It is noteworthy that the time of the unknown man's appearance in the park, according to preliminary conclusions, just coincided with the time of Lauren's murder. That is, the cameras recorded the killer immediately before and after the commission of the crime. A thorough study of the records and a frame-by-frame analysis revealed some more details. First, the suspect was moving very purposefully, quickly, looking around as if afraid of being noticed. Secondly, he appeared in the park literally 30-40 seconds after Lauren, obviously following her. And after the crime, he fled from the scene in the opposite direction from the entrance to the park, climbing over the fence in order to disappear as quickly as possible. All this confirmed the version that the murder was intentional, planned, and perhaps not even the first for the criminal. He acted quickly, brazenly, trying not to leave traces. However, in the heat of escape, it seems, he still made mistakes that allowed him to be filmed on cameras, at least partially. The footage from the cameras was immediately shown to Lauren's parents and friends. Unfortunately, none of them were able to recognize the man in the video. It is clear that everyone was shocked and extremely saddened by the tragedy. Relatives could not believe that someone could intentionally, brutally kill their kind, bright girl. Lauren had no enemies, conflicts, or debts. She had no valuables or large sums of money. She did not lead a risky lifestyle. Therefore, the version of revenge or robbery immediately disappeared. A week after the murder, a press conference was held. There, police officers spoke, who told about all the evidence found and asked the public to help identify the suspect. Lauren's father, barely holding back tears, begged everyone who had any information to inform law enforcement. Relatives promised a large monetary reward for valuable information that would allow finding the killer. Lauren's story shook the whole city. Thousands of people responded, began to spread information on social networks, organize searches, and volunteer. At the same time, work with physical evidence continued. DNA, fingerprints, and other biological traces were carefully studied in the laboratory. Finally, the experts were lucky. The genetic profile of the suspect matched the data that was in the police database. The system issued the name Zion William Teasley, 22 years old, African-American, who had several criminal records. Detectives immediately began to study the identity of the suspect. It turned out that Zion grew up in a dysfunctional family. His parents were alcohol and drug addicts. From a young age, the guy had problems with the law, theft, hooliganism, threats. In 2020, he was convicted of a series of armed robberies. Zion spent almost a year in prison but was released early for good behavior. He was last arrested in January 2023 for a knife attack on a passerby. However, then the victim withdrew the statement, so Teasley got off with a suspended sentence. At the time of Lauren's murder, he was under police supervision and had to regularly check in at the precinct. The last such check took place on April 27th, that is, the day before the tragedy in the park. Having received this information, the detectives began to develop a plan to detain the suspect. They established round-the-clock surveillance on him. It turned out that at that time Zion was not working anywhere and spent all his time at home. Sometimes he went to the store, visited some dubious individuals. Having obtained an arrest warrant, the capture group went to the apartment of Zion Teasley. The door had to be broken down, but there was no one inside. During the search, the police found a bucket of chlorine, gloves, and rags. It seemed that the suspect wanted to destroy all the evidence. Fortunately, he did not have enough time for this. In Zion's room, a suitcase stuffed with clothes was found. There was also a brand new passport in a different name and bus tickets to Canada. It seems that the criminal planned to flee the country. Investigators immediately suggested that Zion found out about the search and wants to hide from justice. A large-scale special operation began. Orientation on Zion Teasley was sent to all states. Border guards were warned that they needed to detain the murder suspect. Patrols were on duty at railway stations, airports, and highways. Detectives checked the calls from the fugitive's phone, determined his location by the signal from cell towers. At the same time, investigators continued to gather evidence. They found several witnesses who saw Zion Teasley following Lauren the day before the murder. One woman noticed how he was standing near the girl's entrance and seemed to be waiting for her. Another man saw the suspect in the same park 2 days before the tragedy. A thorough study of Zion's past revealed that this was not the first time he had attacked women. A month before Lauren's murder, he was detained for harassing some girl in a club. And even earlier, a girl he was dating wrote a statement about him for beating her. True, then the case was closed for lack of evidence. By all accounts, Zion was an extremely unbalanced, aggressive person. He hated women, considered them inferior beings. They found his posts on social networks where he called them bad words. And there were also photos with knives that strongly resembled the murder weapon. The police suggested that Lauren could have become a random victim of a maniac. Zion saw her on the street, stalked her, and then attacked her in a deserted place. Perhaps something about the girl provoked him, her attractiveness, ease, headphones in her ears. Experts say that people like him often perceive female defenselessness as a reason for aggression. Lauren's relatives could not believe that someone could be so cruel, merciless. Their daughter just went for a walk and was brutally killed for nothing. The girl's father addressed the public with an emotional speech. He begged everyone to refrain from mob justice, to give the police the opportunity to punish the criminal according to the law. Finally, 3 days after the start of the search, Zion Teasley was detained. He was hiding in an abandoned garage on the outskirts of the city. During the arrest, he resisted and injured one police officer. During the interrogation, Zion behaved defiantly. He stated that he did not commit any crime and that he was seeing the girl for the first time. Then he began to deny that he was in that park at all that day. And when he was shown the video from the surveillance cameras, he fell silent and demanded a lawyer. The prosecutor immediately brought charges against Zion Teasley for intentional murder and kidnapping. The weighty evidence was video recordings, Lauren's things found in the garage, a knife, DNA, and fingerprints from the crime scene. The court chose a preventive measure in the form of detention without the right to bail. The trial of Zion Teasley began on June 5, 2023. It was one of the most high-profile cases in the state's history. The whole country closely followed the progress of the hearings. Journalists, activists, and concerned citizens crowded around the courthouse building. Everyone wanted to see with their own eyes the person who committed such a horrific murder. Zion was brought into the courtroom in handcuffs under heavy guard. He was dressed in an orange prison robe and had an indifferent look. In contrast, Lauren's family did not hold back their emotions. The girl's mother cried all the time. Her father looked angrily at the defendant. Friends of the deceased, who were holding her photographs, were also present in the courtroom. The prosecutor, in his speech, tried to convince the jury that Zion Teasley was a cruel and cynical murderer who posed a great danger to society. He emphasized the audacity of the crime and the large amount of evidence against the defendant. According to him, Zion was a psychopath who hated women and got pleasure from causing them pain. On the other hand, Zion's lawyer tried to prove that his client was not guilty. He questioned the evidence, saying that someone else could have killed Lauren. The defender asked the jury not to succumb to emotions and public pressure, but to be guided only by facts. He also mentioned Zion's difficult childhood and the cruel treatment he received in his family. Currently, Zion William Teasley is charged with first-degree murder. In December 2023, the Maricopa County Prosecutor's Office filed a motion to apply the death penalty to the defendant as the highest measure of punishment provided for by the legislation of the state of Arizona for such a serious crime. The Phoenix Police Department reported that the investigation into the case is complete and the suspect faces prosecution. At the moment, there is no information that would indicate that the attack on Lauren Heyke was anything other than a random choice of a victim by the perpetrator. Zion Teasley himself does not admit his guilt in committing this brutal murder. He continues to be held in custody without the right to post bail. The trial of the accused is scheduled for October 2025. It is expected that this will be one of the most resonant trials in the history of the state of Arizona. The tragic death of Lauren Heyke shook all of America and became a real shock for her family and friends. The girl, who loved life so much and believed in the goodness of people, became a victim of a cruel and senseless crime. This murder once again reminded society of the importance of public safety and timely response to alarming signals about the inadequate behavior of certain individuals. This story also showed how important the work of law enforcement agencies is, as they were able to promptly find and detain the suspect and gather the necessary evidence of his guilt. Ahead is the judicial review of this case, which should put the final point and determine the measure of responsibility of the murderer. Society hopes that justice will be fair and that the criminal will receive the most severe punishment. Most importantly, the memory of Lauren Heyke should live in the hearts of all who knew and loved her. This girl will forever remain young, beautiful, kind, and sincere. And let her story be a warning to everyone: value life, be careful, and do not be indifferent to those who are near. Traditionally, thank you for watching, and remind you that it would be great if you support the video by liking and subscribing to the channel.